Hey guys, how we doing? Today is Monday, February 28th, 2022, and here we are at the end of another month. Um, okay, so today's video is going to be something a little different. Uh, Something I've always kind of caught my interest a little bit throughout life, and it might be of interest to some of you. Others may not give a hoot, skip on to the next video or whatnot. I want to talk a little bit about something called generations, specifically the baby boomers, Gen X, and where the millennial generation begins. While I'm at it, I also want to talk about midlife and middle age. Uh, it'll be 2 weeks ago tomorrow that I turned 41 years old. Uh, I was born 46 days into 1981. You know, when I was a little kid growing up, and my dad turned 41, he was already a grandfather. My sister had made him a grandfather. Um, he was a middle-aged guy. He was, a shop foreman of at a bus garage, worked, diesel mechanic, and he had achieved the, level of being the shop foreman. He was a middle-aged guy. My parents were separated and divorced by that point, and he paid his child support and came and visited with us on the weekends. Um, I have achieved that age now, and it's funny because I went to look up and do some research on middle age and the middle of your life and stuff like that, and I kind of started doing that last year when I turned 40, and I was interested that it's like here almost like here we go again with my age group. Every time we achieve another milestone in our life, here's these organizations like, let's slide that goalpost back another 5 years, another 10 years. Um, I was interested to find on Wikipedia. Man, I forget who it was. I don't. No. It wasn't Wikipedia. Might have been another source. I forget who the source was. But the source had suggested that middle age was between ages 45 and 65. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, if you take 65 and you double it, that's 130 years old. That's pretty fucking old. I've been around for 41 years. I have never met anybody in my lifetime that lived to be that old. And then on the low side, they say 45. You double that, and that's 90. I know a few people here and there that make it to their 90s. God bless them. But the overwhelming majority of the sources I looked at on the average lifespan for a man, specifically here in the United States of America, suggests that the average lifespan falls somewhere between 75 and 80 years. Closer to 80. Which would make the start of middle age technically as early as your late 30s. So I've just debunked that whole 45 to 65 theory. I'm a middle-aged man. Not that anybody gives a shit, but this is clearly this whole like 45 to 65 thing. Oh, well, these sources believe it's 45 to 65. This is a group of people that probably make these decisions that I guess they want to feel better about the fact that they're getting older. And oh, well, people are living longer. Well, small, very, 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 very small segments of the population are living longer. Not everybody's living longer because people are still smoking cigarettes. You know, people are still using illegal drugs. And you know, as much as these sources that want to that you know, as much as these so-called sources that want to keep on saying that people are living longer don't want to admit it, those people that smoke and do drugs and drink still exist. And medicines have gotten better, huh? Yeah. Okay. Uh, be, when medicines get better, people should be taking less of them. Talk to an old person, look at their pill box. Ask them to show you their pill box. Okay? Have some coffee, guys. French vanilla in there, too. Mmm. Oh, that son bitch is good today. But anyway. Okay, so we got through that part. Now, the generations. Baby boomer. Gen X. Millennial. Okay. Now, my parents are older baby boomers. My mother will be 69 this year. My dad is 72. He'll be 73 in October. So they're older baby boomers. Now, years ago, about 30 years ago, these two cats called William Strauss and Neil Howe wrote a book on the generations, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they covered back to the 1500s. Now, I've always used their numbers because, to me, their numbers seem to be the most accurate. When I was a little kid growing up, you know, that's the numbers we went by. Okay, you were born in early 81, you're Generation X. The year zero never existed, so with millenniums being 1,000 years, one could safely conclude that the new millennium began January 1, 2001, not January 1, 2000. In my world, you reach adulthood at age 18. Okay? Because when my dad was 18, he went through basic training and got shipped off to Vietnam to defend this country. Well, to go to war. That was a political war. Not necessarily to defend this country. To go to war. Thank you, Vietnam vets, for your service, but sadly, you probably shouldn't have had to serve in that war at all. But, hey, it is what it is. It's done is done. Not here to disrespect you or denigrate your service. So thank you to all Vietnam vets. But if he was old enough to go to war on behalf of our country at that age, that's an adult. That, in my opinion, is adulthood. Okay? Now, along comes the Pew Research Center. Oh, well, it's 1965. Generation X is 1965 to 1980. And 1981s are millennials. I think they say like 1981 to 96. Okay. So let's think about this here for a second. Okay? Now, their baby boomer generation with a source like Pew Research Center and then the Department of Defense, well, I call them the Department of War, but that's a subject for another video. They, they hover while Strauss and Howe and generation and the baby boomer generation with 1960 being the last year, and then Generation X would be 1961 to 1981. Millennials would start with 82. Pew says baby boomers go from 46 to 64. 65 to 80 birth years are X. 81 to 96 millennials. So we're going to debunk them, their little theory that numbers, we're going to debunk the Pew Research Center and the Department of Defense right now too, because if you reach adulthood in the previous century, why would you call that person a millennial? I was an adult for almost 2 years when the new millennium began. Okay? So you're going to lump me in a category with my niece that I helped raise and took care of when she was a little girl, rather than my next door neighbor, David, who I grew up with, who is 6 months older than me. Does that make any sense? Let's talk a little bit about my childhood and my upbringing. When I was growing up, these stupid phones didn't exist. Okay? We had these things, ours actually in my house mounted on the wall, had a cord that was about 1,000 feet long. And we didn't have push buttons. Nah. What the hell's a push button phone? That was like high class, high fashion technology. I had to take my little finger and put it in this little circle thing and go to dial numbers. We had what was called a rotary phone. Hey. See these things, guys? Remote control for the television, right? You want to know what the remote control was for the television when I was a kid? It was called, you get up off your ass and walk over to it and change the fucking channel. Oh, by the way, we didn't have a cable getting screwed into the back of it or going through a box. No, we had this thing on top called an antenna. And you were lucky if you got about 6 or 8 channels. Okay? Oh, music. Oh, we got to stream everything to our phones today, right? No. We had these black things with little circles in the middle, and you put them on this little thing that spun, and you put a needle on it. Those black things were called, we didn't call them vinyls, guys. No. And by the way, I never stopped collecting them. I've collected them throughout my whole life. They're called records. Okay? And I've collected them my whole life. Okay? You know that meal that you have in the late afternoon, early evening, that kind of like informal meal where you sit down with your family? Well, for some people it's more formal than others. In my household, we didn't call it dinner. We called it supper. Okay? Oh, you're going to love this, All you people out there with your fancy cars with your overhead cams and your variable valve timing and this cylinder deactivation and all this other shit. When I was a kid, we didn't have electronic fuel injection. Well, that did come out when I was a kid, but our cars didn't have it till later on. That was the new thing. That was the latest and greatest thing when I was growing up. Only the privileged few had that back then. We had these things called carburetors on top of our engines, and they had idle screws and mixture screws and accelerator pumps and needle valves and seats. Yeah, and if you wanted to advance the timing in your engine for a little bit more performance, you went and you took your wrench and you loosened up the little hold down bracket for this thing called a distributor, and you moved the distributor to advance the timing. You get a little bit more pep out of your engine. Did I mention this was good? Oh my goodness. So, I must say, for me. Oh, and by the way, just in case anybody's wondering, I don't care anything about that stupid halftime show with the Super Bowl. I don't really know anything about those people. I've heard their names before when a few years back. I don't really care about any of that stuff. I liked a lot of the 80s music and the 80s television shows. And I know it seems to be the thing in this country today that pop culture and anybody that's involved in it like this absolute hatred of the 80s and anything that came out. It's hard to find those TV shows on TV. And let me tell you what happened. In my area, we had this channel called Antenna TV. And I used to I used to watch this show all the time when I was a kid called Head of the Class. Yeah, rest in peace, Howard Hessman. You were the man. Dr. Johnny Fever, a.k.a. Charlie Moore. You were the best. We're going to miss you. One of my favorite shows to watch as a kid. That came out before Saved by the Bell. And I love that show. The Head of the Class. Now, that was on a channel called Antenna TV here. Now, for those of you that don't know, Antenna TV kind of branched out and created this other channel last year, this sister channel called Rewind TV. And my brother works for the cable company, so he was explaining to me how it works. He says, it's not our fault that you guys don't have that channel because they don't have an affiliate in your area that they can run it off of for the Rewind TV. So when they took all those shows like Head of the Class off of Antenna TV and they switched them over to Rewind TV, I lost the ability to watch them. So thank God I have the first 3 seasons of that show on DVD. I'm waiting for them to come out with season 4 or 5, and I'll complete the collection because I love the show and it's worth money. So anyway, so let's get back. Let's get back to the original topics here. This is just a little bit of how things worked. When I was a kid, we went to school and we rode the school bus. The first school bus I rode had a gasoline engine, carburetor. So was it a Ford? I think it was an F600 chassis. Had one of those tall block Ford engines. I believe it was a 385 series, I think. It was based on the 429 to 460. It was just a tall block. It's called the 370. And my bus had a 2-barrel carburetor. They had 2 versions. Some of our buses had 4 barrels, and then the other ones had 2-barrel carburetors. But and there was a difference. Believe me, the ones with the 4 barrels had a little bit more giddy up and go. But depended on how good the driver was too. If they weren't screaming and hollering and sit down. But this is just some of the experiences I had as a kid. Records, cassettes, CDs. I'm at a point in my life where I'm set in my ways. I don't want to stream music. Quite frankly, I have no interest in it. I don't want on demand is kind of neat, but I don't want the streaming services on the TV either. I want physical copies of the stuff that I own. I mean, like yesterday we were in the store. I said, walking back in the Wally World there. I said, wow, Sanford and Son, the complete series on DVD. $25. Score! What the hell do you think I bought? Yeah, I got it. Had to get it. Big dummy. But anyway, hopefully this is a little bit of an understanding of, my beliefs on things. And I think it's weird, the older I get, and I notice this with people like 10 to 15 to 20 years older than me. It's like those individuals and then these sources like Pew Research Center and others, it's like they want to keep moving that goalpost back further and further and further. It's like, are they going to show up at my funeral with a diaper bag and a bottle and a pacifier? Wait a minute. They don't call it a pacifier today. I think they call it a binky today. That's what I thought. I thought I heard. I thought they call it binkies nowadays. It was called a pacifier when I was a little kid. But anyway, I digress. Talking about some crazy shit here. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of my coffee. We're going to upload this video. You know, I know, guys, it was kind of a silly one, but I wanted to address this, this whole generational thing and stuff like that. I believe, my own personal opinion, baby boomers are like my parents' generation, 40 birth years of 43 to 60. Gen X, 61 to 81. Millennials, 82, maybe 83. I could even say 83 because they were the first ones to reach adulthood in the new millennium. 82, 83 to points, at some point, a little further down the road, maybe the mid-90s, mid to late 90s or so. Because I really don't know too much about that generation. I can't relate to those people. Honestly, they drive me nuts when I'm around those young people. I try the best I can to deal with them, but I find myself getting frustrated so quickly with them. Because they're, the ones I deal with are not the most respectful either. And respect is a very important thing in this world today. So anyway, you guys have a goody-goody. And we will see you on the next video. Take care.